I think this is working. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on the 17th, and you've joined me for the webinar on why your baby might be at risk of flathead syndrome. 3 common mistakes that parents sometimes make. So I'm glad to have you here. If you're catching the replay, that's awesome. And if you're on here live, that's cool too. I think I'm going to share this to Facebook live as well, Facebook. So if you're watching the recording, please comment below and say hello. So I just want to share my screen here. And I've got a little PowerPoint to share with you all. There we are. I think that's working from the beginning. Okay, cool. I think we're ready. So why your baby is at risk of flathead syndrome. 3 common mistakes that new parents make. And it's quite tricky to say mistakes because often it's things that parents don't actually know. You can't be making a mistake if you don't know any better, do you? So what I want to do is just have a chat through these things and share some really easy solutions. I'm a children's physiotherapist, and I've been working with parents and babies for coming up for 18 years now. And I know how sort of things have changed over the years, and what's becoming more and more common, more and more worrying to parents is the onset of flat spots developing on a baby's head and also subsequent delays. So I just want to talk about some of those things because it's completely avoidable. So I'm a children's physiotherapist. I have been since I qualified in 2001, and I love it. So let's get started. Right, how to get the most from this time. So if you're watching the replay, if you're able to do this, try and aim for nap time. Turn off any background programs on your computer, and it just makes it run smoother. Give yourself space and time to discover and digest this, and then put it into practice. That's the most important thing, is actually I really want you to take away stuff from this that you can use right away to start helping your baby with his or her development. So first of all, do you wish your baby came with a handbook? I know when I first had my 2, I wish they had. I was quite lucky, obviously, because I knew how to hold and play with the babies, but it's such a minefield, and nobody actually tells you. So you get lots and lots of information on how to get ready for having the baby and being pregnant, but when the baby actually comes, it can be quite overwhelming. So yeah, pop in the comments if you wish your baby had come with a handbook, and what's the one thing you wish that you would have been able to look up really easily. And then the thing, are you already worried about if you're doing the right things? Now, for those of you new to this game of being a mum or a dad, there is definitely something called mummy guilt, and every single mum I know deals with it, and it can be quite relentless, and it's one of those things that's really hard to completely get rid of. But the more you understand and the more you know, the more confident you become, and the less you have to feel guilty about. So if you're already worried, let me reassure you, you are doing the right things, and by being here and watching this, you're getting information, you're educating yourself, empowering yourself to be able to make conscious choices, to be able to make sure that you are doing the right things, and that's pretty awesome. So if you want a happy, healthy baby, you're worried about your baby's head shape and or development, and you want to know that you are doing exactly what your baby needs you to do. That's what I'm going to be covering today. So you're in the right place if you tick any of those. Okay, so what are the 3 mistakes? The first one is not keeping track of pressure, or at least being aware of pressure on the baby's head shape. Many parents give up on tummy time or don't even actually start it, and then using baby containers. So those are the 3 things I'm going to be going over today. Right, so why do we need to actually talk about this stuff? Well, often in my clinic, I get mums come in with their mothers, so the baby's grandparents, and I start talking about tummy time, or they notice that their baby's got a flat spot and they're worried about it. and we start talking about positions and about equipment. And things have changed a lot since our parents and our grandparents had kids. So one of the things that changed and why this has become such a thing is that in the early 90s, the Back to Sleep campaign started. And it's really, really important. And hopefully everybody who's watching this knows how important it is to put their baby on their back to sleep. But with that came a fear of putting babies on their tummies at all, because obviously sleeping on their backs reduces the risk of sudden infant death syndrome. But lots of parents became anxious or unsure how to put their babies down on their tummies. So babies missed out on that. Whereas when we were born and when our grandparents, when your mum or your grandparents had children, it was automatic. They just put their babies down however the baby wanted to sleep. They didn't worry about it. They weren't up all night trying to make sure the baby wasn't rolling over, and it wasn't a big deal. Okay, but now it is. And there's definitely been an increase in babies presenting with flathead syndrome. Since then, it's not only because of the Back to Sleep campaign, there's other things. And those other things are the availability of baby gear. So this is what I was referring to about baby containers, and includes things like bouncers, car seats, swings, sleeping hammocks, anything that you put your baby in that holds them in that C-shaped position and restricts movement. That's a baby gear. That's baby gear or a baby container. And then the third thing is social media and technology. So there's so much pressure on mums these days to buy this thing and that thing, and you know, for your baby to get their best development, they need to have this latest fancy gadget. And there's so much pressure, and if you don't have that, then you feel like you're not doing what you should be doing for your baby. So those are huge things that, particularly even in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, have really, really massively increased and caused a change in how babies are parented, newborn babies are looked after. So that's why it's becoming more of a issue, I suppose, and more of something that we really need to talk about. Okay, so the first thing to talk about then is pressure and your baby's head shape. So I've got Emily here, who is my baby doll. And what I want to talk about is flat spots developing on your baby's head is caused by pressure. Okay, so when your baby's born, the skull needs to be really, really soft to be able to pass through the birth canal. But what happens then is that it takes up to 18 months plus for the skull to become hardened and fused, all right? And you'll know that because you know the baby's soft spots and everything. That's because there's a gap between the bones, and that over time closes. So until that happens, the baby's skull is quite soft, and it's not the best, you know, it's not the prettiest example. But if you think about a ball of Play-Doh or blue tack or press stick or whatever, some sort of Play-Doh or soft dough. If you roll it into a ball, it goes all in your hands to become a nice, firm, round ball. As soon as you leave that ball on a surface for any amount of time, when you pick it up, the edge of that ball will be flat, okay? And that is very similar to how our babies' heads develop, all right? So you've got different types of flattening. And pressure, so if your baby spends any amount of time on one side of the head more than any of the other sides of the head, is going to cause flattening. And you've got different types of pressure of head shapes there, you can see. So what causes pressure? Pressure causes pressure. But basically, if you think about it, if your baby's put down to sleep on their back, maybe they've got a tendency to turn their head to one side more than the other. So say she's turning her head to her left, so she's getting pressure on the back of her left head. Then maybe when she wakes up, I hold her in my right arm to feed her. You can see then that there's pressure on the left side of her head again from my arm. Then maybe I put her in her baby bouncer, and I'm working over here, so she's again turning her head to the left, pressure on that side of the head. Put her in the car seat again. If she's got a preference to turn her head to the left, she's going to have pressure on that side of the head again, all right? So before you know it, throughout the day, your baby, in the first few months, spends an awful lot of time with the back of their head or the side of their head on a firm surface. And that's what we need to become aware of, all right? Because the opposite, so if you had that ball of Play-Doh with a flattening, if I picked that up to want to make it round again, I'd need to put pressure all the way around your head. So it's not enough to just think, okay, well, my baby's got pressure on this, I'm just going to hold her up and make sure that she doesn't have anything on her head at all. That doesn't really help, because what we need to make sure we're doing is putting pressure throughout the rest of the head to be able to round it out, okay? And that's where proactive positioning comes in. And Rachel Coley from Can Do Kiddo is, she designed this little pyramid, which is brilliant for remembering the different sort of stages. So if you think about the old style food pyramid with all the good healthy food on the bottom, and at the top is the sugar. That's kind of how this pyramid works. And it manages the pressure on your baby's head. So what it is a lot of different positions, including things like side lying, tummy time, carrying in a sling, and playing on the back looking to one side, playing on the back looking to the other side. So by knowing what positions your baby can be in, to first of all help with pressure on the side of the head, and second of all to kickstart their development. So by giving them opportunity to explore and to feel different positions, they will then develop their physical, emotional, and sensory systems. So it really, really kickstarts their development in those first few months. Okay, vital to understand proactive positioning for a lot of reasons, namely to kickstart development. Okay, so a quick one on flat head. If your baby's developing a flat spot already, because the skull is soft and can be managed, can be changed, you've got scope to change that flattening, all right, by doing different activities. There are a few things that could be causing your baby to turn her head to one side more than the other, and that could include tight neck muscles or lack of experience. So what we need to do is make sure that that is covered. I'm not going to cover that now, but if you've got any concerns or questions, then please, by all means, email me, find me on Facebook, Bron Warner, or go to your local Children's Physiotherapy Centre service, and they will be able to help you if you've got any concerns at all about your baby's development or flat head. So yeah, so there are things that can be done, and the sooner you start doing those, the better the outcome, you know, the quicker that you can change things. So that's about pressure. So just to recap quickly, a lot of times parents don't understand what causes flat head, and therefore they don't notice when their baby has got pressure on one side more than the other, right? And that's what you now know, so you can change it. Right then, number 2, the tummy time is worth persevering with. Now, I know in this country we've tried really hard for tummy time, but often it's one of those things that the health visitor maybe says, oh yes, make sure you're doing tummy time, it's really important for your baby. And mummy goes home like, oh my god, my baby doesn't like it, so I'm not doing it. You know, don't understand when to be able to do it or how. Now, tummy time is not just lying your baby down, face down with a mouthful of carpet. You know, there's lots of different positions for tummy time. And the reason it's so important is that this position, when they're lying down on their stomach and starting to lift their heads up, they are then strengthening all the muscles at the back of the body. Right, so the neck muscles, back muscles, bottom muscles, leg muscles. Start strengthening against gravity. And obviously for us to be able to sit up, stand up, walk, we need to be able to hold ourselves up against gravity. And that's what tummy time starts doing. Now, it's also a sensory light switch. So if you think your baby's usually on their back, for babies who are on their backs only, they're just getting sensory experience through the back of their body. So they're getting pressure, touch, all those things through the back of their body, but nothing through the front. So it's really hard for them to develop an awareness of the front of their bodies. When they're on their front, they're getting nice input through their hands, through their arms, through their tummies, through their legs, through their faces. So it's a 3-dimensional experience then by doing this proactive positioning and making sure that they're getting tummy time. And basically it's like switching on the sensory light switch, okay? Now, many babies don't like it to start with because we've left it a little bit too long to start it. If you think about when your baby's born, you're generally lying down on your back and your baby's handed to you on your chest in tummy time. So your baby actually experiences tummy time, the very first experience, you know. And if you've ever, so that's the one thing. So you can start tummy time from day one. And ideally, that's what we do. And yes, your baby won't be flat out. They'll be all scrunched up in that little fetal position with their cute little bottoms up. But what happens over time is that that helps to stretch out the front of the body, okay? Now, if we only start tummy time at 8, 12, 16 weeks, your baby's already used to being on their back. They're not used to being in that position. They might still be quite tight in their hips and their tummies. They haven't yet developed the strength to lift their heads up. However, they know that there's stuff out there and they want to be able to see it. They've been used to looking around when they're lying on their backs or in a chair, a bouncer or a swing. So it can be quite frustrating and they do get a little bit annoyed. And what happens then is when they cry and get upset, often we come in and rescue them. Okay, you don't like it, that's fine, let's not do it. But it is vitally important for development because often, you know, the next stage from being on the tummy is to then push up on the arms, like this little one in the picture, and then to push up on hands and legs, and then to crawl. And what we're seeing from a therapy point of view is lots of babies now not crawling because they didn't experience tummy time. And crawling is really important for developing skills for both sides of the body, coordination, hand function, strength in the shoulders and the hips. And it's an important skill for learning how to do bilateral activities later, like drive a car, ride a bike, and all sorts of other useful skills. So tummy time has a knock-on effect for all the subsequent stages of development. And if we miss tummy time, it is possible that the subsequent stages, so things like rolling, crawling, standing, walking, could become delayed. All right? I'm not saying all babies. Some babies bottom shuffle and it's absolutely fine. But there are some babies who miss out the stage and they do have catch up to do later on. So tummy time from day one, if you can get it started right at the beginning, that will be massive again for skyrocketing your baby's development. Like I said just now, there's lots of different ways for tummy time. It doesn't have to be face down on the carpet. You know, he has a couple of pictures and ideas. And again, if you Google it or let me know, then I can share some more with you. All right, the third mistake, I touched on this earlier when I spoke about social media and about equipment or containers, is that all you have to have is a blanket, okay? So if you literally played with your baby in your arms and then let them spend time on the floor in different positions, like with that positioning pyramid, on a blanket on the floor, that would be the best thing for their development, okay? They do not have to have lots of equipment. You don't have to have swings, you don't have to have bounces, you don't have to have jumperoos, you don't have to have any of the other stuff. Now, I'm a mum myself and I know that occasionally you need to shower and you need to be able to cook dinner and put your baby down somewhere safe. So I'm not saying don't have those things, but it's to be mindful of what those things are for, and to be aware that having space in each room on the floor to actually be able to play. So giving your baby lots of opportunity to explore their body, explore their environment in an unrestricted, free way is the best thing for the development. And that includes side lying, tummy time, and all those other, you know, kicking on the mat, all those other things, okay? So you don't have to buy loads of equipment. And actually, what we tend to do is think, okay, well, our baby, you know, we can set our baby up in something because it holds them in that position, but it becomes very passive and they don't develop the strength to be able to do that on their own as quickly as they would have if they'd been allowed to sort of explore and go through these stages naturally and how, you know, on the floor. So you don't have to buy loads of equipment. What's best is to have space in each room for floor play. Now, I know when you've got animals and you've got siblings, it can be a bit of a nightmare to keep your baby safe. But if you're aware of this, sort of making sure that they're having some throughout the day is better than not. So that's what I wanted to say about that. Again, they cause a static position with limited opportunity to move and explore, increased risk of pressure, so going back to the flat head. If your baby is in a container like that, a lot of the time, without a break, you've got more of a likelihood of flat head syndrome developing. And then the recommendations are to limit using the equipment. So, like I say, if you need to have time to have a shower, put your baby in the bouncer, try and limit it to no more than 20 minutes at a time, and aim for no more than 2 hours in a day. I know that can be hard because, we do things like go to town, but what happens often now, because car seats are so convenient, is that we'll put the baby in the car seat to go to drive. When we get to town, then the baby's asleep, so we take them out in the car seat, wheel them around town for a couple of hours in the car seat, back home, and then you get home and maybe they're asleep again, so we leave them in the car seat for a little bit. So before you know it, you've spent 4 to 6 hours in the car seat. And car seats are actually one of the biggest causes of this flathead syndrome as well. So where possible, just use car seats for the car, please. The rest of the time, when they're tiny babies, you've got the carry cot component, or you can either push them really flat. And at least then when your baby's lying down, they've got a bit of freedom to move their head from side to side and look around. And that then is distributing pressure throughout the back of their head, rather than just keeping it in a central location or to one side, depending on what your baby does. Obviously, if you need to travel, just try and break it up. Be aware of what's going on. That's the biggest takeaway I'd like you to have from this webinar, is that now that you know what causes it, you can become more aware of what's going on. You can start looking at your baby in equipment and say, actually, yeah, she's in the car seat, she's in the bouncer, she's in the swing, and all the time she's turning her head to the right. How can I now make sure that she's moving it to the left as well? Okay? And things you can do are to sort of change the position of where you are. So if you're lying her on the mat, try and get her to turn her head to the left. So in Emily's example, so she's turning her head to the right. Maybe then, if I'm in the room and she's busy playing, try and play on the right of her so that she's got to turn her head to her right. Or if she was in my bedroom on the cot next to my bed, I'd change the way that she has to look to see where I am. So if I was sleeping on her left, so to see me, she's turning her head to the left, maybe I'd turn her around in the bed so she's got to turn to her right to be able to look at me. Just little things like that. Changing the arm you're feeding in. Things like that can really, really make a difference. So just to recap, the 3 mistakes that new parents often make, because they aren't aware of it, are not being aware of the pressure on the baby's head shape. They give up on tummy time too quickly, and they use baby containers or baby gear more than is needed. And those are the 3 things. So yeah, so I really hope that's been helpful. If you've watched this, I'd love some feedback on what you think. And if you recognize that that's something that's been going on for you, yeah, I'd be really, really keen to know. And if you've got any concerns or problems or worries about your baby's development, then by all means, in the UK, definitely, there's local children's therapy centres. If you're watching this in Wales, local, there's lots of children's therapy centres, and they will offer free support and advice. And if you've got concerns, definitely go to your GP, your health visitor, or straight to the children's centre. And stick to what you know. There is something to be said for a mother's instinct and intuition. And if you think there's something wrong or you're not happy with something, then search until you get an answer that you're happy with and that makes sense. All right? Flat heads, flat spots on heads won't go away in time. You have to actually change what you're doing with your baby, okay? It doesn't get better on its own. A baby that's slightly, that's kind of not rolling or wanting to be on their tummy or not sitting at the kind of expected ages, might need a little bit extra help, okay? And if you're worried, then get some support just to check that there isn't something you can do to just help them along. Milestones are a bit of a tricky thing because babies tend, every baby's unique and lots of babies do things in different ways. But often what happens is there's a build-up. So there's lots of mini milestones that then make up a bigger milestone. And I talk a lot about that. So if you'd like to be on, if you'd like to know more, then please do send me an email. I've also got I'm really excited to be offering a online course, as well as live, like little weekly tummy time classes. So if you're interested in any of those things, let me know. The course then would be the flathead solution, and I'm looking for some mums to try it out because it's the first time I'm running it. I'm really excited about it. And week 1, we'd cover pressure and neck range. So understand exactly what pressure is doing to your baby's head, plus why it's such a big deal. So we go into flathead syndrome a little bit more detail and work out, and I tell you what's going on. And we identify, sort of screen your baby, your unique individual baby, to find out if their neck is tight and if they need to do stretches. If that's the case, then I can work you through that. Take a photo of their head to be able to see if there is a flat spot and what your specific positioning advice is. And then 10 simple things to do to boost your confidence now. Week 2, we'd go over that pyramid idea, so proactive positioning. While milestones don't do justice to how well your baby's doing, exact ways to position your baby to avoid baby helmet, and exactly what to do to be proactive rather than reactive when it comes to baby's development. And then I give you exactly the breakdown on equipment, what isn't helpful, what you do and don't need, and what to do when you're putting your baby in the gear. Happy tummy time play. There's so much you can do to make tummy time a fun, enjoyable, natural thing that your baby does. And the quicker your baby gets happy being on their tummy, the quicker they'll become independent. The quicker you'll be able to leave them on the floor to play while you get on with something else. And they'll become much more confident and happy to explore. So tummy time really is vital, okay? And it looks different as your baby grows older, and that's something to be aware of as well. So week 4, the future is bright, baby. Talk a little bit about routines and boundaries, step-by-step path to moving forward. So you'll have a little bit of an outline of what to do and how to help your baby's development as they get older. Red flags. So red flags are things that we look out for, and if they are noticed, generally you need to maybe get some support and some advice and just check that there's nothing going on as your baby grows, and who is available to help you with your different needs on your baby journey, on your new parenting journey. And then as a bonus for this course, there's a baby sense module, and sensory play, messy play, again, it's a big buzzword. It's becoming more of a popular thing, but often we don't understand why we need it and what's going on when you do it. So the 7 sensory systems, how you can help your baby to process, make sense of, and cope with the crazy world. The secret to successful baby weaning, and then 20 simple, fun, and cheap DIY play ideas to stimulate sensory development. Because you don't need to spend a fortune on toys for your baby. Excuse me. Okay, so you're amazing and you're awesome, and I'm so glad that you've been here. I'd like to offer this course. The first 10 to sign up will get automatically upgraded to VIP, which means that I will be doing individual consultations with you. I think I've said 3 individual consultations. So work you through step by step, every step of the way, to make sure that you understand exactly what's going on and your baby's needs have been addressed and looked at. And we can either do that online or in person if you're local. So the value of all of that, so it'll be 4 weeks of online support. We'll have a private Facebook group, weekly Q&As, and content dripped to you over the 4 weeks. The value of that, there's at least 8 hours of sort of input, is kind of minimum of £325. And right now, because it's a new thing, I'd love to offer it to you for £59. So that's less than the price of a session with me would be individually. And you'll get all that information and support. So if you're interested, then the link is down here below. Kids Physio Wales, Happy Baby Play, the Flathead Solution. You can just copy that link and sign up via PayPal link, and we'll get started. The sooner you sign up, we'll get started in the Facebook group, start chatting through stuff, have your first call, and then of course we'll officially start on the 1st of February. So if you're interested, I'd love to see you in there, and we can get started. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope that that's been interesting and that you've got some takeaways. And I look forward to hearing you. If you've got any questions at all, email me at physiobron@gmail.com, physiobron@gmail.com, or Bron Warner on Facebook. Give me a message. I'd love to talk to you. And yeah, good luck, enjoy, happy playing, and send photos of your babies enjoying tummy time. I'd love to see them. Okay. Take care. Bye. If I can find record. Okay, bye.